Jake Carter, a middle-aged journalist with a knack for uncovering dark truths, decided to move to the small town of Ashwood. He needed a break from the chaotic city life and believed that the quiet town would help him finish his novel. He rented an old house on the outskirts of town, a house with a reputation that the locals rarely spoke about. From the first night, Jake felt something was off. The house was eerily quiet, save for the occasional creak of the floorboards. He often felt like he was being watched, but every time he looked, there was no one there. He dismissed it as paranoia, a side effect of his intense workload. One evening, while working late, he heard a soft tapping on the window. Startled, he looked up, but there was nothing. He shrugged it off, returning to his work. But then it happened again, louder this time. He rushed to the window and threw it open, but all he saw was the dark expanse of his yard. Days turned into weeks, and the tapping grew more frequent, more insistent. He began to hear whispers, unintelligible but undeniably there. Sleep became elusive as the noises grew louder each night. One particularly restless night, Jake decided to investigate the source of the disturbances. Armed with a flashlight, he ventured into the basement, the one place he had avoided since moving in. The basement was musty and cold, the air thick with the scent of decay. As he scanned the room with his flashlight, the beam landed on an old, dusty trunk. Curiosity piqued, he opened it and found a collection of old photographs and journals. The photographs were of a family that had lived there many years ago. In one of the pictures, a young boy stood alone, staring directly at the camera, his eyes empty and hollow. Jake's blood ran cold as he read through the journals. They belonged to the previous owner, who wrote about strange occurrences, about seeing a young boy who wasn't there, about feeling watched constantly. The entries grew increasingly frantic, detailing the owner's descent into madness before he eventually vanished without a trace. Shaken, Jake decided to leave the house the next day. But that night, the tapping turned into banging, the whispers into screams. The house felt alive, its walls pulsating with a sinister energy. Desperate and terrified, Jake fled to his car, but it wouldn't start. He was trapped. Returning to the house, he barricaded himself in his room, clutching the journal like a talisman. The banging grew louder, closer, until it was right outside his door. In a moment of clarity, he realized that the entity haunting him wasn't just a ghost, it was the boy from the photographs, feeding on his fear, growing stronger with each passing moment. Summoning every ounce of courage, Jake faced the door. "What do you want?" he screamed. The banging stopped, and an eerie silence enveloped the room. Suddenly, the door creaked open, revealing the boy standing there, his empty eyes fixed on Jake. "You need to leave," the boy whispered, his voice echoing with an otherworldly resonance, "before it's too late." Jake's heart pounded as he backed away, but the boy stepped forward. "It's already too late for you," he said, his form flickering like a dying light. "You can't leave now. You're part of the house." In that moment, Jake understood. The house was a trap, a prison for lost souls, feeding on their fear and despair. He was the latest victim in a long line of those who had come before him. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut, and he felt the house closing in on him, the walls narrowing, the air growing colder. The boy's form flickered one last time before vanishing, leaving Jake alone in the suffocating darkness. He tried to fight it, to resist the pull of the house, but it was too strong. His screams echoed through the empty halls, merging with those of the souls trapped before him. In the small town of Ashwood, the house on the outskirts remained empty once more, waiting for its next victim. The locals spoke of it in hushed tones, warning strangers to stay away. But inevitably, curiosity would draw someone in, and the cycle would begin anew. Years later, a young couple moved into the house, unaware of its dark history. They marveled at its quaint charm, ignoring the warnings of the townsfolk. It wasn't long before they, too, began to hear the tapping on the window, the whispers in the dark. And so, the house waited, a silent predator, forever hungry for the fear of those who dared to enter.